Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to show number 200 of the Arc Junkies podcast. Although this is only my 80th episode, I'm still super excited for the show hitting 200 because I've been a long-time listener to this podcast. And one thing I promised you all when I took over was consistency. A new episode every week. No missed episodes, no reruns, no best ofs, just fresh new content every single week. And since I took over the show back in May 2020, I've delivered on that promise and I'll continue to do so. I love doing the podcast. I get to chat with so many cool people in the industry, meet new people at all the different events, and hear from so many listeners, whether it's in person or through email, DMs on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's just been an amazing opportunity, and I just want to thank all of you for your support that you've showed me along the way. I really couldn't do it without the support. That's like the biggest thing is the fact that I know that people are out there listening. It drives me to continue to make new content and put out a new episode every week. So you all are what drive me to do what I'm currently doing. And as we head into the new year, I'm going to make a few slight changes to bring you all even more content and make the show even better in 2022. One thing that I would like to ask all of you is to shoot me an email at show@arcjunkies.com or send me a DM on any of my different social medias and ask some welding related questions that you would like answers to. The mission of the Arc Junkies podcast is to help educate and inspire the next generation of welders. So by finding out what questions you, the listeners, have, we can help even more people out there because I'm sure more people, have the same question. And it can be anything from general welding questions or maybe some of the technical stuff. And if it's something I don't know, I'll do the research and find out. One thing I can promise you is I'm never going to BS you. I don't know everything about welding, and I'm sure that I'll never get to that point in my life, but I can damn sure try. And you can all ride along as we dig deeper into that 3/8 ball of molten metal we're all so fascinated by. Changing gears a little bit, this week is Thanksgiving, at least, stateside anyway. So I want to wish you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving. I hope you all enjoy your time off. You get to eat some great food, cut loose a little bit, relax, and spend time with those that matter most in your life. In today's episode, I'm chatting with CaLae McDermott with CEM Marketing, Mike Miller with Williams Industrial, Scott Witkowski with Republic Testing, and Juve Calvo of TipTig. We talk about what it takes to get hired on at some of the big companies that do specialty welding. We talk about, weld testing requirements, that some of these companies have getting in, welding inspections, new technology that's coming out, and an awesome adult welding competition coming up December 4th in Houston, Texas, with all of the proceeds going to the Texas High School Welding Series. This is going to be an awesome event that showcases the skill set of some of the best welders in the industry when it comes to welding at a plant or out on the pipeline, with the winners in each class taking home a grand prize of up to $5,000. If you're interested in participating, go to theweldcompetition.com for more information and to sign up. We'll get into the episode right after a quick word from the supporters of the show. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Rockmount makes products you need to get the job done right the first time, every time. And I'm not just talking about their amazing wires and rods for maintenance, welding, and repairs. Rockmount also has a full line of products to get the job done. As welders, 80% of what we do isn't welding at all. We have to cut, drill, grind, and prep our metals for repair. Rockmount makes abrasives, cutoff wheels, saw blades, chop saw blades, burr bits, drill bits, and even welding chemicals such as flame hold, which is a compound that can be used to hold parts in place while welding and also act as a heat shield compound that protects heat-sensitive areas around the welding zone. I just gave a can to a guy that came and replaced my AC unit because he was using wet rags while brazing copper tubes. But flame hold is even better because it protects the parts from getting hot at all. They also carry heavy-duty epoxies, anti-spatters, cold galv, and cutting fluid for drilling and cutting applications. Check out their full catalog of rods, wires, abrasives, and chemicals at rockmountwelding.com. And don't forget to place your order right through mscdirect.com and get free shipping on all Rockmount products and get them delivered right to your door. Rockmount's designed to weld stronger and last longer. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welding. Everlast has a machine for every budget and every skill level, and they're backed by a 5-year warranty. I personally own 3 Everlast machines myself. I just had a buddy over this weekend to help me do a couple of side jobs and got him set up on my 255 EXT, and he couldn't believe how well it ran. He's always been a little skeptical about buying an Everlast machine because he didn't think that they were good machines. After running it for a few hours, he fell in love with it, and now he's planning on getting one for himself for his small shop. Everlast has a full line of stick, MIG, TIG, and multi-process welders on their site. They even sell generators so you can have portable power for remote jobs, camping trips, and power outages. Check out their full line of machines today at everlastwelders.com. And don't forget to use code word ARCJunkies in the comment section at checkout to get a free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather USA. Outlaw makes some of the coolest custom hoods in the game. And right now, you can save 15% on all your custom leather goods from the fine folks at Outlaw Leather. Whether it's a brand new hood, a rod pouch, a scabbard, or a bolt bag, or anything else they make in-house, you can save 15% using ARC Junkies in the discount box when you shop at outlawleatherusa.com. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machines, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the ARC Junkies podcast. Helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me today are the founders of the Adult Welding Competition that will be taking place in Houston, Texas, December 4th. I've got CaLae McDermott with CEM Marketing and Events. I've got Mike Miller with Williams Industrial. I got Juve Calvo, owner, founder of TipTig. And then Scott Witkowski with Republic Testing. Did I get all that right? That's kind of a mouthful.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you all for joining the show. I wanted to get you on to kind of talk about and promote the upcoming adult welding competition because, as most of the listeners know, I've been part of several high school and college level welding competitions, but I've never seen like an adult welding competition where you actually have some big stuff on the line. I think first place winner's what, like $5,000?
Yep, first place in both the plant and pipeline get $5,000 cash.
So you've got plant-based. It sounds like we're running a vegan channel here. So you got plant and pipeline welders. So 2 separate competitions for the adults.
Well, we actually have 3. So we have plant, pipeline, and then executive. And executive is for those men and women that are in leadership positions that it's been a hot minute since they put a hood on. So we wanted to make sure that they got back in the game and offered something fun for them to do. And if they win, they're the ones that are actually handing the cash over to the winners of both the plant and pipeline.
Oh, nice.
And all 3 winners will be featured in an article by Bic Magazine.
Fantastic. And then part of the proceeds go back to the Texas High School welding series, correct?
Absolutely. All of we're donating the proceeds, and then any of the leftover material that we have is going to go to Eric and his crew with the Texas High School Welding Series. Nice.
That's something that, like I said, I've seen, all over Instagram, people talking about the Texas High School Welding Series. Different people on social media, especially the ones based out of Houston, going to these different events and competitions, and just watching these young men and women go in there and kind of give it their all. And it looks like it's a pretty big event. I mean, there's always a pretty good turnout for it. So, I mean, anything that we can do as a welding industry to help support and nurture that growth of welders and say, hey, this is a viable career. Here's people from all these different companies that they're looking at hiring you, if you take first place or, when you graduate, when you get out of welding schools, you've got the skills, you got the know-how, you got the want to, and you got the drive. And I think the best place to recruit people, because I know, Mike, you're pulling in welders all the time. Like the best place to recruit, new welders is going to be from a welding competition. Because like I tell people all the time, like 90% is just showing up. So if you show up, you take that extra time and effort to go to a welding competition and see where you stack up against others. Everybody else is too chicken shit. They're still sitting on the couch. They're not coming in to do this stuff. They don't want to test their mettle, literally and figuratively. So I mean, I think just getting involved with these different events, it's awesome to watch this stuff happen because like when I was a kid, when I was growing up, I started welding at the age of 15. We didn't have opportunities like this. So to see, how far the welding industry's come just in my short 24 years, being involved in this industry, it's like leaps and bounds. There's so many different opportunities for the young men and women that are getting into the trades today, especially, and now you have an adult level welding competition. So I think that's really cool. It's the first one I've ever seen, especially, you know, with a cash prize of $5,000 taking place right there. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, the welding capital of the U.S. I mean, Texas. You know, every time I go down there, it's cool just to see, you know, how many rig welders are just up and down the highway, parked over at Buc-ee's. You know, it's just insane to me because I don't see that here in Central Florida. It's not a big welding hub. It's more manufacturing. So I don't get to see, you know, you guys are immersed in that welding culture where you're at, you know, based out of Houston.
Absolutely.
So Mike, what are some of the things, like from an employer standpoint, you know, people get nervous, and I think that's another benefit of welding competitions. Like you're going to have to take a test everywhere you go. You know, if you want to get employment, it's great to have certifications, whether third party or through AWS and stuff like that, but you're still going to test the welders coming in, because having that piece of paper is nice. It gets your foot in the door. You say, okay, you know, this person has performed this procedure at one point in time. Maybe it's one they practiced 1,000 times, and this is the time they got it right. But we need to test them again before we put them into in service. So what are some of the things you're looking for when you bring new welders in to test them?
Well, yeah, and I think that's a big misconception. I think that, you know, we're doing a lot with the young students in high school, the Texas High School Welding Series, and several other entities, you know, around the U.S. But I think we have a long way to go. And one of the things is, you know, they do gain a lot of certification, and that gives them some experience in testing and welding of different alloys and things like that. But, you know, the reality of it is you can come out in the field with 10 or 20 certifications through that school or that organization that you're a part of, but it really means very little in the real world. In fact, you got to prove yourself on every job. It's one of the key things to a welder. I mean, and honestly, things change so much. I mean, you know, I remember when I turned 40, I started losing vision, and by 44, I got, you know, cheaters in my hood and things like that. So, you know, just because a welder can really do good, you know, 6 months ago, you know, don't mean that they necessarily are going to do good today. And so each company has to take it upon themselves to make sure they got the qualified candidates. So I think that is a big misconception. But for me, from an employer standpoint, you know, I look for more than just welding. I look for, you know, the way you walk in, the way the way you handle yourself, you know, kind of a respect type thing. You know, are you late, or are you on time? Are you early? Are you asking the right questions? And, you know, a guy walks in or a girl walks in with a good attitude, maybe needs some help in the welding, you know, side of things. You know, people like me are more apt to help them, you know, get to that next level. But, you know, a good attitude to me is worth just as much as a great welder. So, you know, I've always said in my career that, you know, I'd rather have a welder, an average welder with a good attitude, than a prima donna that, you know, that thinks the world owes them something. And the reality of it is, you know, when you're looking for specialty type welders, which is the business that I'm in, you know, it is a different breed, and it's a breed that's, you know, that a lot can't you know, start out in. Very few can. But when you're bidding and trying to win projects, you know, you're basing that on, you know, the level of talent that you have within your company. And, you know, if you're bidding on, you know, high-end alloy type specialty work, you know, you need those welders that have that experience. So there's a lot to the weld testing, but there's also a lot to great attitude. You know, the presentation, to me, perception means a lot too.
Now, have you ever taken somebody in that didn't do so hot on the weld test, but they had like a great attitude, great drive? You know, it looked like they knew what they were doing, but they could use some help. Have you ever been known to like hire somebody on like that and kind of work with them and put them, you know, maybe with a mentor?
Yeah, I have. In fact, we were dealing with a high school in South Carolina, and we had a couple of students that came out of there, and they came highly recommended. But, you know, when they came in, we realized that there were some things they knew and some things they didn't know. But at the time, we were looking for nuclear type or nuclear level welders. So yeah, they both happen to have a great attitude, willing to do whatever it took, willing to put in the time. So we took those welders from a basic ground level welder and turn them into a good specialty alloy welder that could weld 2¼ chrome, 9 chrome, duplex type stuff in a matter of a couple of months. And these welders went from bottom level to advanced level welding. So yeah, if you got a good attitude and you come in with the right attitude and the right mindset and work ethic, absolutely a company like mine or any company that has a vision of growing people will absolutely latch onto that.
And I think that's a great thing. I was just having a conversation with a group of students that are getting ready to graduate. They're actually, I was like looking at the dates, and that's CaLae, that's why I wanted to verify it with you, because their graduation is December 2nd, and I was like, I'm supposed to be doing something right around that time, and I was like, I got to double check, but luckily it was the 4th, so I'll definitely be out there for the competition. But I was talking to them, and they're like, everywhere I look, it's like, they need 5 to 7 years worth of experience and this, that, and everything, and I'm like, doesn't matter, go apply. Go apply and show them what you're worth. Show them what you can do with the 40 weeks of experience that you have. Show up on time, a good firm handshake, a positive attitude, bring your tools with you, take all your PPE and all that stuff and go in there and do what you've been training to do. Because the fact of the matter is, most of these companies, they can't hire or they can't find the people with 5 to 7 years worth of experience. And then the people that have 5 to 7 years, they don't want to work for that entry-level pay that they're trying to push off on them. So, I mean, that's another big thing.
Yeah, and the reality of it is, I've worked with welders that picked it up and ran with it in 1 month. And I've worked with welders that's been welding 5 years and still can't weld. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it is. So when it comes to experience, I don't really look at the 5, 7 year type background type stuff, because everybody's different. Everybody learns things differently, faster, slower. Some pick it right up and some don't,
Mm-hmm. And then Scott, what's some of, like, you do a lot of testing. So, I mean, what are some of the more like common problems that you're seeing with people in the industry?
Well, the experience level is what we really struggle with. And I mean, it's we're running into a problem is we've had a record amount of baby boomers leave the industry in the last year and a half due to COVID and the industry being what it is. All these multi-billion-dollar projects have slacked off. And so there's still work out there, but a lot of these baby boomers weren't making the money, so they've kind of moved on. And now we're trying to shove all these young people out of the industry, and they have no mentors. We talk about the welding experience. You can teach somebody what they don't know when it comes to welding, but like we run into issues all the time with getting people out on projects, and they're not familiar with their surroundings. I mean, you put them in a power plant in an outage, and you've got moving equipment and all types of things going on. There's dangers at every corner. There's scaffolds. They've got to tie off. They're wearing 5-point harnesses. They may have to put a Tyvek suit on and make an entry into a pressure vessel or a reactor or in a tower to go do some clad restoration. And man, you don't want to send somebody that has 2 years welding experience to do that.
Yeah.
Not without a group of people that have experience with them, so they don't put themselves in a situation. I mean, this last in the last 4 months, there's probably been about 4 welders perish in this country that I know about in these plants and chemical plants or refineries on projects because of the most recent one was that I heard about was asphyxiation. They crawled off into a vessel and it had a nitrogen purge on it, and they never made it out.
Damn.
So man, it's not just making sure somebody can weld when you have them in a booth. Part of the evaluation is talking to that individual, whether it's a girl or a guy, and saying, hey, how many jobs have you been on? Have you ever been in these chemical plants? Have you ever been in that refinery when they took the head off that cat cracker? I mean, do you have any idea how dangerous that situation is? There's a reason why these welders are making over $40 an hour. Some of these companies are paying double time after 8. It's because it's hazard pay. It's dangerous, very dangerous. And I don't think we stress that enough in these welding schools, in these classes, that yes, welding is a great industry to be in, but it's also one of the most dangerous. And I think we overlook that sometimes. And you can be the most safest person in the world yourself, but you got 150, 200 other people on a second floor above you that may be dropping wrenches from scaffolds.
Yeah.
It can be something as simple as that, and you don't come home, or you come home completely different than how you arrived. So, until you've got a couple years under your belt working in these facilities and understanding, what to do and what not to do, and there's no way to get experience taught in a school that way. You just got to go out there and experience it. But the issue that we see the most is with the lack of experienced journeymen that are leaving the industry. Now the mix is you've got more younger people to accrue than you did in the past, and it's even more dangerous. So we struggle with that every day, and it's just trying to familiarize those individuals with that stuff before they get out there so they don't get hurt.
That's going to be the biggest thing is like, how do you with the mass exodus of welders? Because I think I should go back and read the website again. I got to pull the AWS website up, but they just released all the different stats. But like prior to that, my understanding was the average age of a welder right now is 55, and I believe I think it was on like 10,000 people are retiring from the industry per day. And like, how do you supplement that experience when it's lost? There's not many training programs that are going to go through and, teach you welding confined space, aerial lifts, rigging, tie off points, scaffolding, like all this stuff. Like how do you, and then when most people want 5 to 7 years worth of experience, where are these students going to go to get that? Where can they start off at like a low level, or not low level, but like entry level apprenticeships to get this type of information? I think schools need to be a little bit longer and start incorporating that into their programs, like especially confined space, because that is so dangerous. And like my dumb ass, like not knowing any better, coming fresh out of welding school, getting out of the military, like going in, like, oh yeah, I can fit in that hole. I'll go in there and weld it up. Not knowing anything about, you need to test the, the oxygen levels, and, you need to make sure that you have air coming in, you have air coming out, you have, safety points for egress. Like, hey, like the mentality I had was the job's got to get done, so I'm going to get in there and I'm going to weld it out. Well, while you're in there welding and cutting and burning and everything, like 70% of your atmosphere is being burnt up by your arc or your torch or, something to that effect. Or if you're using a purging gas, I've heard of people climbing into a vessel, because and the guy before him, they left the valve open on the TIG torch and the entire vessel filled up with argon, and they jumped in and it was like, just above their head. They didn't know. It's already displaced all the oxygen, 2 breaths, boom, you're dead. So like there's got to be more education, and there's got to be a place where people can go to get this experience. So Mike, in your experience, seeing the skills gap and, the mass exodus of, the baby boomers coming out and Gen X and the millennials coming in, does your company provide like additional training? Do you know of other companies that are providing additional training for these different safety aspects?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I've seen a couple posts lately about companies offering to, train welders, for free now, where it used to be, 10, 15 years ago, it was $25,000, $30,000. You could get some kind of assistance to get that paid, but there was a lot of cost that comes along with getting a person trained up to weld. The fact is, times aren't what they used to be. I learned everything I learned by being with a small company, Inco, out of Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. And I learned everything on the job. I learned it from mentors. I was a green helper. I had a top helper above me. I had a journeyman fitter and a journeyman welder. And, my job started off loading up a wheelbarrow full of grinders, pulling them to the site and making sure that all of them worked properly, all of them had the right grinding wheels on. At the end of the day, I took them back, and everything in between. That's what that helper did. And, I got a lot of knowledge that this day and time with the insurance requirements and safety and OSHA where it's at, unfortunately, companies can't take that risk anymore. They can't put these students out there and these kids out there or these young folks out there, because there's just so much of a liability. And, and then the world's gone lawsuit happy as well. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. One thing I like, though, that I wanted to mention, I'm part of the industrial group over on the Houston Rodeo. And one of the things that they do well, and S&B had a real big play in this, but one of the things the industrial committee does is it takes and drops off, like it gets kits. Everybody pitches in and put these kits together, and it's basically a skid. So they'll take these all this material, all the filling material, the drawing package, the quality control package, all the safety equipment, everything, and they put this in these high schools that compete on the same level as the Texas high school stuff, but they'll all compete to get these skids built. They've got to go through everything from a safety briefing every morning. They got to put the harness on to climb on the structure once it's built. They got to look at the RFIs on drawings. They got to ask for the information. They got to redline the drawings and tell them why. They have to look at all the procedures and quality aspects of it. Then they have to build this thing, make sure the coatings are all right, make sure the blasting before the hand is all right. And so they are able to see as close to an industrial site as they can in that arena. And I think even when I got involved with it, I thought, wow, that's such a good idea because nobody's doing that. And fortunately, the Houston Rodeo jumped on board and said, that's a great idea. And they got ag mechanics, which we're a part of too, but the industrial committee kind of takes it to a different level. But what it showed me was we're trying to get these folks ready for the field when they leave high school. So if they know enough to be in a better situation, like Scott said, and they know a little bit more and they've gone through a lot of the safety briefings and have gone through a lot of the drawings and the fabrication processes, so they understand it a lot better. The thing is, if you put a welder in school for 3 or 4 months or 6 months, whatever it is, and you don't teach them how to put a harness on, you don't teach them about the argon, you don't teach them about LDH inside of these vessels, you don't teach them real construction site safety and policies and procedures, then they become professional test takers.
Yep. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing is most schools they train so that they can take the test, but there's no experience. They're not teaching them how to read blueprints and understand weld symbols. That stuff's kind of gone to the wayside. It's a lecture on a Tuesday afternoon for like 2 hours, and that's the last time they touch it. It's like, get back in the booth because we get state funding if you can pass this test. Well, At the end of the day, that's like you said, it's not going to help you get a job. I mean, it's a foot in the door because you can say, hey, this person knows a little, a thing or two about a thing or two. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to retest anyway. And it may not be the same test that you took in your nice little welding booth. Like I've taken weld tests off the back of an F-250 with a, hanging in a vise. It's not going to be like this nice, pristine, clean area, where you have all your stuff laid out and everything. It's different, So, I mean, you got to start training people for the real world. Like we're big on manufacturing. So I get a lot of feedback from our employers that we're sending people to. And it's like, hey, what skills do you need? Well, we need more blueprints and more weld symbols. Because that's what I was doing. I was showing them weld symbols, and I was like, cool, everybody got it? And they're like, yeah. Okay, cool. Everybody knows weld symbols. Back to the lab. Let's go do some more welding. It wasn't until I was getting the feedback from the employers that I was like, oh, shit, I got to, start putting some prints together and drawing some things out and having these students work off and build off of these prints. And, since then, it's made a significant impact. Now the students can grab a set of blueprints and, build something from raw material,
Absolutely. And I'll tell you something else. Another thing I've gotten really involved in is going around to some of these technical centers and these high schools and just explaining to them from a specialty contractor what I'm looking for, because it's outside the box of, GTAW, SMAW, stainless, and carbon. Here's what I need. Here's what I need your students to understand. And the fact is, most of them are willing to incorporate that into their education program so they can make, strengthen the chances of these young folks getting jobs in the field in real life. So, I mean, most of these schools, they don't know what they don't know. In fact, a lot of the educators that I've talked to lately don't even really have welding experience. So we have to help them as an industry and as companies and as owners. And, we're going to have a major shortage. 10,000 retiring a day. Last year, the record was that we were, 50,000 welders short right now. And there's mega projects kicking off on every corner. There's going to be a supreme problem. But I think everybody has to take a part in it, and it's part of the Houston Rodeo. It's part of the Texas High School Welding Series. It's part of Art Junkies spreading the message. It's part of a lot of people coming together to say, hey, we got a problem. What can I do at a small level to do my part?
Mm-hmm. So how did the whole adult welding competition, how did that formulate? I mean, between the four of you, and then I guess Eric involved with the Texas Welding High School, but he wasn't able to be here tonight. How did the whole adult welding competition come up?
It was actually just an idea that I had. I used to work at the American Welding Society, and when I left there, what I wanted to do was create events that made the welding industry happy, and made them proud. And so I think that there's a need for every industry to come together once or twice a year, meet some new friends, see some old friends, show their skills, talk about what's going on back at their home, back at their job. And I didn't really see that happening for the welders. And so that's what I want this event to be. So it's definitely a competition first and foremost, but we're also going to have a lot of fun with it. And we're going to make it an event that everybody wants to come to each and every year. So as of right now, we have welders coming from Arkansas, Arizona, Missouri, Alabama, all over Texas. I got a call from a guy in Canada today. He's trying to make it down. So, and that's my goal, is that these guys compete. They show their skills to people that can potentially hire them. But then after the competition, we have some fun. Like, we've got a band coming, lots of food, lots of drinks. And I want everybody to walk away meeting someone that they didn't know before, and they come back next year to see them again and show what they've learned over the year. And so that's what inspired me to do this. Is I just want to create events that make the welding industry happy, make them want to come together, make them proud. And so my goal is that this will do that for them.
So this is going to be an annual event.
It's an annual event, and we're actually talking about doing one up north in the summertime also. So eventually we want to grow them to where it could be like a north versus south kind of thing.
Oh, there
eventually.
You go. That'd be kind of cool. And then Juve, how did you get involved with all this?
Well, I'm very good friends with all these guys, with Scotty, CaLae, and Mike, and I've known them throughout the years. And we've actually worked on several other projects together from a marketing standpoint. It's been great working with these guys and actually exposing them to new technology that's available other than your regular standard processes that you see out there with your manual GBAW, GMAW, or even your stick rod electrodes. And then that's kind of what we bring to the table is trying to get more exposure to the common welder that's used that a little bit more into the technology that exists out there. For a lot of people, they've never really heard of TipTig. It's basically a semi-automatic TIG process. So we've just, done a lot of work promoting and marketing technology towards the new and upcoming people that are getting into the welding industry, so they can see that there's a lot more to your regular processes of welding out there.
That's a big thing too, because like the first time I seen TipTig was at FabTech, and it's a really cool freaking product. And I'm not a pipe welder by any stretch of the imagination, and I did pretty. I'm going to say I did pretty decent. Everybody else said I did really well for doing that, but like that's a really cool process. Is you've got it's kind of like cold wire feed TIG, but yours is actually energized and it's ran through almost like an LN25, like a suitcase. And there's an agitator on the inside to almost kind of like manually pulse the wire as it's deposited to put a root in for the weld.
Correct. So it actually, what we've done with the technology is we've addressed a lot of the issues that come with the manual GTAW. A lot of it is consistency, ability, or from a skill set standpoint, having that good hand-to-eye coordination. Where this is addressing a lot of that. But the agitation that you saw through the wire, it's actually 20 hertz. So it's 20 times per second that filament material is going in and out of the puddle, creating a pulsation to the actual puddle breaking surface tension. And it actually what allows you to drive the root pass on an actual pipe. And, obviously you ran it there for a second, and you got to see how the easeability of carrying out the process and putting in a pretty good consistent root pass on a pipe can be. And we do carry energy to the weld wire, so it is a hot wire process, a little bit different than other products out there that carry a cold wire. we are energizing the wire to the puddle.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Strong Hand Tools, makers of heavy-duty welding tables, toggle clamps, magnets, and fabrication tools. If you're a welding student and you want to register your school for a free gift package, head on over to stronghandtools.com/ArcJunkies to register. And be sure to visit them at the Performance Racing Industry Show, booth number 5559, December 9th through the 11th. We're also brought to you by AHP Welders. AHP makes great machines for a fraction of the cost. If you're new to welding, learning in your garage, or you're just a welder that needs something for around the house to fix different projects, check out ahpwelds.com and get a machine for under $1,000 without sacrificing performance. That's ahpwelds.com. Now let's get back into the show. I thought it was a little bit weird at first because I didn't know what to do with my other hand. I was like, I'm supposed to be holding filler wire in the other hand. It's almost like kind of a autogenous welding because, you know, you've got the wire feeding right out of the top of the head. I think it's really neat. Now, have you been able to do testing with TipTig versus like manual, you know, wire feed? I mean, are there any shortfalls when it comes to the testing? I mean, Scott, you do a lot of testing. Have you worked with Juve to develop tests and procedures for using this new technology?
We push technology every way we can with our customers, and so from a perspective of trying to compare it to manual TIG welding or a GMAW process of the same type of filler metal. I mean, you can achieve MIG deposition rates with this process if a guy could weld with it all day long that fast. You can. I don't think you could do it on an 8-hour day, maybe in short bursts, no problem, but you can also mechanize that process. So there's so many different things you can do with it. I mean, what I like about TipTig stuff is, you know, you can be welding stainless steel 1 minute and then, you know, switch the polarity on the machine and put an aluminum spool on there and weld aluminum or titanium. Machine doesn't care. It's one of the most widely capable processes I've seen out there for TIG welding in a long time. And you know, we did a paper with the ASME Code Committee a couple years back in 2018, where we were welding TipTig with stainless steel without a backing purge. So you can even use TipTig to run stainless pipe without a backing gap, because we had a lot of customers dying of argon asphyxiation. So we were like, well, you can do it with MIG, with, you know, processes like STT, RMD, or Peronius' CMT. We're going to do it with TipTig, and we're going to use 100% argon. And it took me and Juve and a couple of our colleagues that did the paper almost a year to figure it out. And we spent a lot of our own money and time doing the development, but, you know, we just did it because we're nerds when it comes to welding, and we thought it could help the industry. No. And we've had people that have been using it. So it's a very versatile system. And I've seen Juve go do demos with that machine. People think you need a smart power source to run it. He hooked that feeder up to a rig welder's SA200 one time and did a demo. You know, I mean, it's one of the most versatile systems out there. Name somebody else's equipment that you can do that with without a special power source.
Yeah, you know, definitely got my attention with being able to have the ability to run stainless steel TIG without having a back purge on the inside. I'm going to have to pick your brain when we're not on air. That seems pretty neat.
We'll send you a copy of the technical paper.
That sounds like...
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, and then that's going to be a part of the event where we'll be able to have the technology out there. So anybody that comes out to the event, they'll be able to try the system and utilize it, push it to its limits. We can put it in a restriction jig and a box, kind of really get the feel for it, you know, not just the participants that are going to be signing up for the event, but, you know, anyone that comes out and supports the event. They'll have an opportunity to utilize it and actually strike an arc with it and really get to see the full benefit of it. You know, you talk about, you know, comparison between a manual GTAW and a TipTig, and until you run the process, you actually get to appreciate what it does and everything that comes with it. Most of the times we don't concentrate on the higher deposition or trying to beat a manual TIG welder, but the quality the quality end result that you get out of it from a weld perspective and a metallurgical perspective. You know, we get into the high alloys. Just today we were doing a lot of titanium for a defense contractor, and they're looking at the technology, one for the quality standpoint and two for the deposition, but also we're one of the only processes that you can run titanium without a trailing shield. And it's due to the travel speeds and the low heat input that we're putting to these to the weld itself and controlling distortion. So I'm looking forward to all the people that sign up for the event and attend the event to be able to try it.
That's blowing my mind now, because first you tell me you don't need argon for a purging gas on the inside of stainless steel, and now you're telling me you don't need trailing for titanium. So, because when we ran it over in Chicago, I think it was like 6-inch Schedule 80, mild steel. So I'm definitely interested. I'm going to swing by your whatever you have set up over there and check it out. I didn't know TipTig was going to be on site for this, so I definitely want to try it out again, because it's a really cool process, and I was running a little bit short on time up at FabTech and frankly exhausted, but I want to go back out there and give it another shot. So I think that's really cool that you're going to have that technology available. And that's one more thing with, as we talk about education and high school and different colleges and stuff, training people to enter the workforce, is technology has made leaps and bounds. And when you walk into a lot of, welding schools, they're still running like the old Lincoln Tombstones, and like Miller-Matic 255s and stuff. And it's like, they've developed different waveforms, like you've got STT and RMD and pulse modes, precision pulse and smart pulse. And it's a lot of these instructors are really hesitant because they don't have that experience to operate this stuff. So they're not going to teach it, even though that's what industry's demanding. That's what industry needs. So, I've seen other instructors, and, God bless them, because they're following the state curriculum, but they're still teaching oxy-fuel welding, which, the last person I've seen do any oxy-fuel welding was Bob Moffett, doing artwork. And then, the guy that came and swapped out my AC about 3 weeks ago, he's doing a little bit of oxyacetylene brazing there on the old copper tubes for the Freon lines. But outside of that, like, your welders aren't running those processes. Give it up. Quit teaching that stuff. Switch over to Pulse and STT and RMD and all this new technology that's coming out, because that's what these people, once they get into industry, that's the new technology. Getting like TipTig out there and, in front of everybody and showing them, hey, look, there's a new welding process. We've got orbital TIG welding. Mike, last time you were on the podcast, we were talking about remote orbital TIG welding, because it's just not safe to put somebody in a nuclear environment to perform this weld. They can get in there and hook up the equipment, but then they got to get the hell out, and operate it remotely. So, this is stuff that people need access to.
Well, here's the reality of it, of this whole situation. And these guys aren't talking enough about themselves. They are both actively involved in a lot of game-changing processes and equipment coming out. Some of it's already out, some of it's been out. You talk about, purgeless stainless.
Yeah.
How many billions of dollars a year do we spend on backing gas for stainless steel on these mega projects? I mean, we got actual tank farms holding backing gas now out here. Trucks coming in every day. I mean, it's unreal. How much of a savings is that? That's the type of stuff these two guys are involved in. TipTig, what was it? No post-weld 9 chrome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things now, and what we have to get out of is that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Because that's got to change. The mindset's got to be, that's the way we've always done it. But are there better processes? Have we missed something? Do we have information now that we didn't have 20 years ago when this procedure was written? Those are the things that these two guys, Juve and Scott, are real versed in. And I'll say one other thing. You talk about the event, and it's kind of unfolded. So it was unique to watch. CaLae came to us with an idea. And we got, she knew that she knew events, but she also knew what she didn't know. And she started, she called Scott and Scott's called Juve. And, naturally, I got pulled into the picture because we all come from different facets of this industry. And it's so neat watching it all kind of unfold into, some person's dream that is now 2 weeks away from coming to reality and could set the stage for years to come and put levels on a different competitive level that changes the entire game when it comes to employment, when it comes to pride in your craft, when it comes to bringing back the old stuff that we have lost over, the new, the cameras and the phones and all the heart and soul that we had. Bringing all that back is it's so amazing. But I didn't feel like she touched on that as much as, she's not giving herself enough credit. I mean, to do what she's done and get to where she's at and build this team around, what she believes the future looks like is just fun to watch.
And I think it's really cool. And it's something that, the industry needs, being able to see this type of technology and, be able to go out there and compete and see how you're stacking up to others. And the fact that you're doing it, like we talked about earlier, like chemical plant and then, petroleum, those two different, because I mean, we all know one pipe welding group is superior to the other piping group. And it just depends on which side, which group you belong to. But I think it's really cool to see that because we need people in the powerhouses. We need people out there on the pipeline. We need structural hands. You need people in manufacturing. So to hold an event where people can actually see where they're stacking up, against others. And then I would imagine that there's going to be employers on site looking to hire some of these young men and women that are out there competing and, do well in the competition.
We've invited a lot of the HR people from a lot of these industrial construction companies to come in and talk to these people and look at potential, new recruits.
No, that's great. And so, CaLae, what else can people expect if they come out to the Adult Welding Competition?
Yeah, so we've got some demos by Key Plant and some other automation companies. Miller will be there with their trailer. Lincoln's going to be there showing some of their new demos. ESOP's also going to be there. We've got some people that make different welding gear and wear. They're going to be there selling their stuff, giving away their stuff. So whether you walk away with the $5,000 cash prize or not, you're still going to be walking away with something as a competitor. So all of these vendors have turned out and want to support this and want to make sure that the welder feels loved. And so it's going to be a great event. And I just have to say, I came to these guys with this idea, and all of these men are extremely busy. Their full-time jobs are basically 2 or 3 full-time jobs along with their home lives. And they've still taken time to help me pull this off. And there is no way I could have done it without these 3 gentlemen, Eric, Kevin, and Kenny from the local 211 union. There's no way I could have done it without them. So I just can't say enough about this industry that's more like a family than it is an industry. And this is just proof positive that that's true.
I think that's the biggest thing is like the weld. And I don't know, and I've said it a million times on the podcast, so you got to forgive me. I don't know of any other trade that's as tight knit as welding. And like I tell people all the time, like welding, it's a broad field. It's a very large spectrum, but it's a very small, tight knit community. And regardless of where you go, your name is going to precede you. So, make sure when you're dragging up, you're not burning any bridges when you're walking across it, because you guys have all experienced. I see everybody shaking their heads like it's a very small industry. It's like, I don't know how many welders there are. I think like 275,000 or something, like in the industrial, like professional welders. In the grand scheme of things, it's not. I mean, that's like less than 1%. It's like 1/10 of 1%. But it's a very small, tight knit community, and it's more of a family. When I go to Fab Tech or I go hang out with the guys from Outlaw Leather, I go up to the Excel Welding Competition, or when I go out there to the Adult Welding Competition, I'm going to run into people I know. And like, we don't even live in the same state, most of us, so it's like every time we get together, it's literally a family reunion at all these different events because it's such a small, tight knit group. And that's what I love about welding. And I don't think electricians have that. And I don't think plumbers have that. And I don't think the HVAC guys have that. A lot of those industries, they call them cutthroat for a reason. The welding community is like, it's a brotherhood. It's very similar to the military. I think that's why I gravitate to the welding community like as much as I do, because it's something that it's been instilled in me. But what are some of the things, what can people expect if they're signing up and registering for this competition, what are they going to be welding on?
So I'm going
You want me to
let
touch on that?
And I take that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Scott.
The plant style competition is really based towards single hand, multi, faceted welders that can weld TIG and stick manual. So we being that this was a first time competition, we didn't really want to muddy the waters. CaLae has got lots of plans for challenging us in the future, depending on how this event goes. But the plant-based style competition is going to be a 6-inch sked 40 in the 5G position fixed, bead and hot pass with an S2 wire TIG, manual fill and cap stick rod 7018.
Okay, so carbon pipe.
And they're going to be judged. Go ahead.
You said carbon pipe then?
Yes, sir. Carbon steel pipe. And the reason why we didn't go to a 6G is because every training institution in the world teaches 6G welding, and we're trying to do it different. And we're going to take the top 20%, per se, if their weld looks good, it's going to get digitally X-rayed on site. That'll be part of their, the grading of the competition. There'll be a very, very strict visual done by industry people that have welding experience. There won't be a judge that's judging this competition that doesn't have certifications with welding experience. So we've handpicked a lot of the judges that coming from the industry that's needing the welders. A lot of these industrial constructors and stuff are going to be the ones judging these welders. And if that weld looks good, there's a 2-inch Schedule 10 stainless that they're going to have to weld in a 2G fixed to make it interesting with the same strict visual requirements. And then it'll get NDE, volumetric NDE as well.
Now, how long does
that's for the plant-based competition.
Okay, how long does it take to perform an NDE on a single pipe? Because I imagine you're hitting it from 2 different points.
Well, they're going to probably put a culminator on the ID of the pipe and wrap the OD at one time, like on the 6-inch. It may take them, and they're using digital or computer radiography, so it may take 5 minutes to develop that shot.
Okay.
It's not going to take long. It'll take longer to set it up.
I talked to the X-ray group today, and they said it's going to be about 4 minutes a coupon. It's going to be, one single shot, all digital readout right there. It's going to have a grading system inside there with the, on top of, what has to be acceptable per the code, but they're also going to have a grading system inside there. And so, once the coupon gets graded, it goes to the NDE table, and then we got an expediter taking it from the table quickly to the X-ray booth so that we can get those results back and start comparing people out.
Nice. And then what's the other competition? It's I'm guessing it's like an API based competition.
So we're going to have a 6-inch Schedule 40 carbon steel butt and branch with a cellulosic 60-10 root and an 80-10 70 plus or ARC 80, whatever people call the 80-10 rod, wherever they come from. Cellulosic hot pass fill and cap in a butt weld in the horizontal fixed position. And then part of the competition is they'll have to lay out, cut, and fabricate a 6-on-6 branch connection and then weld it out in the overhead position fixed.
Nice. This
and
could be a hell of a competition.
The butt weld on that competition will be X-rayed as well, and the branch will just be a visual qualification.
Okay. And then how many competitors are you all anticipating for each different division?
So we have talked about that, and we are kind of like, because all the welders keep calling me and asking me, like, do you have any spots open? And we are going to keep taking them, and we'll just start doing shifts. So the more the merrier, basically. But we are anticipating around 100 is what we're looking for our first year. And like I said, they're coming from all over the country, which has been amazing.
That's freaking awesome to see people coming from all over the place. And I know, like, especially come April, and I've heard of, like, professional welding competitors that are going from, like, South Coast Welding Academy up to Kentucky Welding Academy, out to Arkansas Elite Welding Academy, and then off to Western Welding Academy, and, like, just running the circuit and, like, hitting up all these different, competitions and stuff. So I'm interested to see, like, who shows up and what they can do. Because, like I said, this stuff, like, I eat, sleep, and breathe welding, and there's a lot of this stuff that, like, I can't do myself. I'm a structural hand. I mean, like, give me a sleever bar and, a bag full of 7018s and I'm happier than a pig in shit. But like, I've never welded too much O-beam. So, but it's always fascinated me, like pipe, a lot of people call it pipe. It's always fascinated me, the level of expertise in a different area of welding, something that, that I'm passionate about. So to see somebody else, passionate for the craft that they do, like I get excited, to go out there and watch this and spectate and like just be a part of the event. And, like even if, can people show up if they're not participating or if they're not competing?
Absolutely. Like we want you to bring your families. Like I said, we're going to have food, we're going to have music. We've got a band coming, like bars. It's an event, right? So it's a competition first and foremost, but after that, we're going to have some fun.
And it's just a one-day event.
So please bring your families. It's just a one-day event, Saturday, December 4th.
Okay, and where exactly is it at?
It is in Deer Park, Texas, which is about 30 minutes outside of Houston. And it's going to be right out in Deer Park, Texas, and at the local 211 Union. It's not a union event by any means. They just have a really nice facility, and they're letting us use it.
Okay. How many booths do they have set up?
We don't want to get into the union or non-union.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to cross that barrier earlier because, that's a huge piss and match that I don't want to get into. Like a lot of the stuff that I learned was through union, but I've worked both sides of the coin. So I've got nothing but respect for union hands and non-union hands. It's like anything else in life. It's not for everybody. And, so I kind of like play the Switzerland of union versus non-union because, what's good for the goose isn't always good what's, for the gander. So whichever way you want to do it.
That's another thing with this local 211. Those guys are really a different breed of, it's not the old school union, that our grandfathers are in and some of our fathers are in. These guys really do a good job of trying to, work, keep people busy and keep people working. And that's what it's about, taking care of your family, whether you're union or open shop. At the end of the day, people just want to go out there and do a good job, make a difference, have a voice and an impact, and bring the money home to take care of their family.
Yeah.
But I also want to, a little bit of a plug to the industry. We also got a third spot for this competition called the executive level. And this is for folks that are, vice president level people, quality control director level people. This is for the people that's sitting around the bar and talk about, the good old days and how they were golden arms and they were the highest paid welders on the job and get involved, put your cheater in your hood and come on out and compete at the same level. And let's see who's who out here, whether it be from Houston, Arkansas, Arizona, or where it's from. We want those old school people to step up to the plate too. And then the second part of that is it's a great opportunity for a company to put their best welder forward, to put the best foot forward for a good cause. Hey, sponsor your welder, get them in the competition or her in the competition. You got some key welders. You're the top specialty provider in the country. Let's step up to the plate. Let's sponsor these welders. Let's put them out there. Let's put the cheaters in. Let's see what we got.
Now, what's the cost to enter the competition, and how do people go about entering the competition? I want to try and give folks as much information as possible. Because like I said, this episode will come out and then hopefully it's going to drive some more people to register for the event, and they're going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah, no problem. So you can go to the website, and the website is theweldcompetition.com. And for the pipeline and plant, it's $250. And for the executive, it's $1,200.
Okay. And then all the proceeds go to the Texas High School Welding Series.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
Well, thanks. We hope so. So, like I said, the goal is just to create an industry event that people want to come to, something that makes you guys proud. And we want to make it bigger and better each and every year, right? So. No,
that's really cool. I'm really looking forward to attending this event because I want to go over there. I want to hang out with Juve and try out the TipTig again. I want to go see my buddies over at Lincoln Electric and check out some of their new technology. I just seen them at the Steel Erectors Conference down here in Orlando. And then I know the folks from WeldTube just went up to Appleton, Wisconsin. They were hanging out with the Miller folks. So I want to go see them. and then like just kind of peek in on the competitors and see like, you know, how do you do things over here, or how do you do things where you come from? You know, I think that's the biggest thing is like learning more from other people. And like I've told people in the past, like I've learned just as much what not to do as I have what to do by watching other people. Just sit back, shut up, and watch, and you'll learn right away. Is that should I try to replicate that or not? You know, you're gonna learn watching other people. I'm a visual guy. I gotta go out there and see this. So the fact that it's only one day is I'm gonna have to put my Go Fasters on or my running shoes and just try and hit everything up as you know as much as I can.
Well, yeah, and the fact is, you know,
Outlaw Leather will be there. They're giving away, they're making 2 custom hoods for the top 2 winners.
Nice.
So you'll get to see your boys at Outlaw. And then Alan from South Coast Welding Academy has been such a good supporter of this too. So you'll see him. You'll see a lot of your good friends, and hopefully you walk away meeting a whole lot of new ones.
Nice. Like I said, it's a family event. You know, it's going to be just like a family reunion.
Yeah.
To go down there. Like Houston's like, it's become my second home. Going out there and like if I already told my wife, like if things don't work out here in Florida, you know, which we got some good stuff going for us down here in Florida. But if things don't work out in Florida, you know, if all of a sudden it just breaks off and floats away one day, we're going to Houston because that's my second home.
Well, we would love to have you.
And then Juve, Scott, what are you guys going to be doing down there in Houston Welding Competition? I know Juve, you're going to be running some TipTig demonstrations. Scott, are you going to be doing any of the testing, evaluations, or anything like that?
I'm going to be running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just making sure everybody's on point, making sure things are moving behind the background, that the test proctors are making sure the welders are getting in the booths, and we're going to be supplying the welders with a preliminary WPS. So it'll be the test proctor's jobs to explain the parameters to them and whatnot, and kind of give them some guidance. And then once that their tests get done, the test proctors will be taking the material, the coupons, to a judging area, and there'll be the hand-picked judges will be judging, doing the judging on the coupons as well. So I'll just be in the background running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just making stuff happen. We're just mules on pulling the wagon, man. That's what we do.
Nice. That's one more question I want to bring up because I know a lot of people are going to ask, what is the time limit?
What did we set as a time limit on that, Mike? Was it 2 hours?
2 hours was the time limit. Yeah. Here's the thing, Jason, is, we realize there's probably going to be some mistakes this first go around. Our goal is to, step back at the end of this and have a lessons learned and figure out how we get better. How we make it better. That's based on what people's going to tell us in this event. But yeah, it is a timed event. We updated the website today and added a lot more verbiage because some of the stuff wasn't clear. So, we're learning from mistakes too along the way. And, we've had a lot of support. CaLae's got a lot of support, a lot of feedback from people that's helped us, help her. And so, yeah, 2 hours for now. We feel like even us old timers can get that done with a 300 cheater in 2 hours. So we'll see what the industry says. If it becomes a problem, naturally Scott and Juve will be ready to make those adjustments on the fly, and we'll make sure it happens the right way.
Mike, I'm so glad you said that because that's my tagline is make every weld better than your last. And the only way to do that, and that goes with everything in your life. It's not just welding. So like you said, after the competition, we're going to sit back, reevaluate, kind of make some adjustments, and then implement something else. And then once, year number 2 is done, we're going to, sit back, analyze everything, make some adjustments. Year 3 is going to be even better. I do the same thing with every class that I teach. And I tell the students all the time, you want to be like my last group of students coming through the program. You like 15 years from now, you want to be the last group coming through because you're going to get the best of everything. You're not going to have to experience all the mistakes that I've made with all the other classes, or, not have access to all the other equipment that, you have access to now going through the program, because every year that's what we do. Right after graduation, I sit down with my instructors. What went right? What went wrong? Okay, let's do more of what went right and a lot less of what went wrong. How can we avoid that? How can we avoid that next term? So make every weld better than your last, make every competition better than your last, make every day better than your last. So I think that's really cool that, you guys are going to make those adjustments, and it's going to be an annual competition. And I really look forward to coming out this year, and I really look forward to coming out next year. I imagine that the weather in Houston right around December 4th is going to be absolutely beautiful, because it always is, regardless of what time of year I come out. I don't think I've been out there in July. It's pretty bad in July.
It's like Florida.
In July,
A little warm,
August.
just like Florida. All right, perfect. I'm in. So, no, that's great. Do you guys want to plug any social media, websites, anything before we get out of here? CaLae, ladies first. I'll start with you. If you want to plug your website, the different events you have coming up, social media, anything like that, the floor is yours, my lady.
Well, thank you. The weldcompetition.com to sign up for the welding competition on December 4th. We have a boxing event that's actually a welding debate and boxing event wrapped into one. That's going to be taking place in February. So you can go out to CEM Marketing and Events.com to find out all the events that we have coming up. A lot of them are geared towards the welding industry.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
And Mike?
Yeah, I just like to plug, the company that supports me and kind of paves this road, Williams Industrial Services. They've done a lot. They've supported me, and I've just recently come over here, but they've been instrumental in making sure that I'm still a big part of these organizations, and the Texas High School Welding Series and the Houston Rodeo and things like that. And they're a big advocate of it, and I look forward to helping them grow and them helping me grow. I don't have any other plug. Just CEM's done a good job of putting events together and getting better and better with time. And I just look forward to being a part of it all and seeing how she continues to drive the bus down the right path.
Nice. Then Juve?
Yeah, no, just want to thank CaLae there with CEM, and then obviously they can log into her website and look at other events that we're going to be supporting and attending. And then if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about the TipTig process, they can actually reach us out at the website. So it's tiptigusa.com. And then we are pretty much in every platform. We've got our own YouTube channel. We got the Instagram going there. And obviously, they can now actually go onto the website of Republic Testing Labs.com, and there's a little bit more information there that leads you to the technical aspects of what we've done with different materials with TipTig.
Okay.
So,
Scott?
I'm not on social media, man, for good reason.
Okay.
But you can ask around about me and find me if you need me. I'm kind of like that guy everybody knows or heard of. But we're just, let us know if you've got questions or answers. I think me and Mike sat down today and talked about with a lot of inquiries coming in. CaLae's kind of pushing them our direction to handle the technical stuff, and I'll be writing those preliminary WPSs this week and or tomorrow or Friday, and then we'll get those in CaLae's hands, and just trying to be ready for this event, man. And we hope to see the cream of the crop. There ain't no, second place don't pay anything hardly. So, if you ain't first, you're last, Ricky Bobby.
There you go. Now,
I do want one more person before we get off here. Eli with Heavy Hitters has done an amazing
Eli Ryder
job at helping CaLae navigate down this social media platform. And there's so much that boy has, and so many people that he knows, and he touches so many people through that Heavy Hitters website, and also Outlaw Leather, man. From the moment that these ideas started coming to surface, CaLae's reached out to him, Scott and Juve's reached out to him. And these guys have just yes. The answer is never no. They're always in if it makes sense. So I wanted to make sure and give them guys a good shout out too.
That's my
and Alan with WeldTube, Jason. We got to talk about Alan from WeldTube because he helps me so much. And Scotty knows everybody in the Gulf Coast pretty much. And so when Scotty introduces me to someone, it's automatically friends and family. And it's just been such a great experience working with them and learning from Eli and from Alan and all these other social media gurus we've got in the family.
Definitely. And Jesus, just to caveat off that, Jesus and Ismael are like, este mi cuñado. They're like, de mi familia. Because every time I go down to Houston or I see them at different events, They've been nothing but supportive of me before I was Arc Junkies podcast. Anytime I reached out when I bought a hood from them, you know, they were nothing but 100% genuine people. And then I sit back and I see everything that they do for the welding industry, people coming into the welding industry. You know, Bob Moffitt had a young man that was in his welding class. He came in just to learn some specialty stuff before he moved away. And Outlaw Leather made that young man, and he's wheelchair bound. But he came in with Bob Moffitt and learned how to TIG weld. And nobody asked. Nobody said nothing. Bob Moffitt gets a welding hood one day, a custom-made welding hood for the handicap welder.
Wow.
Just, you know, because Outlaw Leather are those people. You know, they're 100% invested in this community. That's where they come from. You know, they know their roots, and they make an awesome quality product. And that's like 90% of what I run is Outlaw Leather welding products. And I have no problem. They're not a sponsor of this show. Like I said, they're family. I plug their stuff whenever I get a chance. They're great people. You know, I can't say enough good things about Jesus and Ismael. So to have them, you know, part of this event and, you know, your automated versus manual welding event, it's awesome. And every time I've been down to WeldTube with Alan, super cool people. Again, he's always treated me like family. Like I said, Houston's like my second home. I freaking love that place. If I could do like a week here and a week there, you know, I think I could get used to the flight and the commute. No, it's great stuff. I really appreciate you all coming on the podcast, sharing the information about the Adult Welding Competition. Folks, if you're out there listening, go ahead and sign up right now. It doesn't sound like spaces are limited, but you definitely want to get into it now before it becomes an issue. So sign up today. You know, go ahead, pay your money. It's going to a great cause, supporting the Texas high school welding program. And, you know, I mean, you got a shot at $5,000, you know, so if you're sitting at the bar talking about, you know, being a golden arm, now's your chance to put your money where your mouth is. Go out there and sign up. I'm not putting my money where my mouth is because I'm not going to be able to hang with you guys. But you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to learn some stuff. I'm going to learn what to do, and I'm going to learn what not to do, you know. So I think it'll be a great event for whether you're a spectator or a participant. So go ahead, sign up, get out there, or at least come out and, you know, cheer on your favorite welder.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, that is all I have for you this week. I hope you all have a kick-ass Thanksgiving. Don't forget to head on over to theweldcompetition.com to sign up for the Adult Welding Competition in Houston, Texas on December 4th. If you get to the event and you see me there, please feel free to walk up and chat. Don't forget to check out the Arc Junkies website, arc-junkies.podsite.io, where you can listen to all 200 episodes of the podcast, check out the supporters of the show, and pick up Arc Junkies hats, shirts, and hoodies. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.